Page 29. How can this last option of establishing mindfulness result in independent dwelling, non-clinging to anything in the world? Can you understand? Okay, let me explain. If you look at page 27, this applies to the refrain that occurs at the end of each exercise. In the refrain, there are actually seven steps or 7 different angles. Okay, the first one is he dwells contemplating the body in the body internally. Well, the second is externally. The third is both internally and externally. Then the fourth is he contemplates the nature of arising. The fifth is he contemplates the nature of vanishing. Then the sixth is he contemplates the nature of both arising and vanishing. And then the seventh, this is the last option. The seventh option is mindfulness that there is a body is established simply to the extent necessary for knowledge for repeated mindfulness. You will notice that there is an or, O-R, an or after every option. Right or not? Contemplating the body in the body internally, or dwells contemplating the body in the body externally, or dwells contemplating the body in the body both internally and externally, or etc. etc. Right until or else is mindfulness that there is a body is established simply to the extent necessary for knowledge for repeated mindfulness, full stop. Then after that there is an and instead of an or. Right? And he dwells independent and does not cling to anything in the world. Okay? So the question is, how can this last option of establishing mindfulness result in the final sentence, or the penultimate sentence? He dwells independent and does not cling to anything in the world. Alright, first, the first option is you look at things internally. Second is look at it externally, and then both internally and externally. And then you look at the nature of arising, you look at the nature of vanishing, you look at both the nature of arising and vanishing. But this seventh option doesn't involve any of that. It's a separate option. You don't worry about whether it's internal or external, you don't worry about whether it's arising or vanishing, or don't worry about its nature. You just know that there is a body, enough for knowledge for repeated mindfulness. Okay? Okay, so this is what it's supposed to be about. So please form your groups and start your discussion. See you in 20 minutes' time.
This is like a kindergarten student coming to a PhD class. First, in our group, we talk about cause and conditions. Like, for example, you are walking along the road, and then you saw a stone, and you are like, oh, whether should I walk over it, or should I remove it, or whatever it is. Anyway, it's not us that's in control, cause and conditions is in control. So when you have that understanding, you are able to dwell in that independent dwelling. And then the other thing is...
wait, hold on. I don't quite understand what you mean by... How do you connect that with independent dwelling?
Neither am I.
Is that your personal conclusion, or is it the conclusion of your group?
Or my minimal understanding of the group.
Oh, very honest.
Bhante, let me just add on. The person who gave the example was because it's all cause and effect, all conditioning, so there's no I, there's no self. So that's what the person understood as independent dwelling.
Independent in one sense?
Independent because there's no self, it's all cause and effect.
Oh, I see. Are you part of are you in a group?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, anyone else? Try? Yes, please, BR.
Yes, to me, it's actually maybe this is also cut and paste to myself, actually. If my point of view is just contemplating the body right now, is on the first subject, it's not enough to result in independent, that we ought be able to eradicate dosa, loba, and moha. We need to have a full package until the whole thing is actually finished, and from there and then maybe we will be able to dwell independence of dosa, loba, and moha from the world. In fact, if I look at it, Bhante, maybe from Ajahn Sujato, there is the earlier, there is a Four Noble Path, Four Noble Truth. Could be there is actually in the end, the package it should be to have Four Noble Truth inside, and then contemplating body as body, mind as mind, feeling as feeling, and Dhamma as Dhamma. And inside the Dhamma, maybe it should, maybe in the earlier sutta, could have Four Noble Truth inside there, which is actually inside that is actually there is Eight Noble Path. So when all this whole package is actually in, then we will result in independent dwelling. But if just one body only might be not enough if I look at it. In my mind.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to try?
I think our group, we have, our conclusion is we are grounded to, we are mindful to your body. So you are more grounded to your body. So wherever you are not, wherever thing you do, you are not influenced by the thought. So you will be more independently on your decision on what you are doing. So by doing so, also you'll be less not clinging to anything in the world. The world we are saying here is our world, our own world.
Oh, the world that you perceive through your senses and what you make up in your mind, is that's your world? Okay. Anyone else? I don't really have an answer myself. And like BR said, maybe it could be inappropriate copy and paste. I don't know. But anyway, Asma Analayo, in his book on Satipatthana, The Direct Path, he says that this phrase, he dwells independent and does not cling to anything in the world, occurs in other parts of the suttas. And this actually denotes that the person has attained arahantship. Yeah? So, it's liberated already. That's why he dwells independent and does not cling to anything in the world. So this is the last sentence, which is the culmination of the 7 options, right? Now, if you look at the options, they are all followed by or, right? Not right until the 7th one, which means that you can do one without the other and still become an arahant. I mean, according to the flow of this refrain as we have it now, all right? And this last option is independent of the others. You don't have to see internally, externally, etc. You don't even have to see the nature of rising and passing, etc. You just know that there is a body, but this body is not me, not mine. The body is just there. The body is there, and you don't know it just for the sake of knowledge that there is a body, and for the sake of repeated sati, remembering that again and again that it's just the body. If you're able to do that continuously, there's no sense of I. If there's no sense of I, then how can there be clinging? Clinging arises from the sense of I, because I want this, I want that, I don't like this, I don't like that.
So, Bhante, we are referring to the physical body here, right, in this context?
In this Satipatthana Sutta, we're referring to the physical body, not the Chinese Shen, that is referring to the self. In this kind of upasana, is referring to the physical body. But even if you look at this body as not self, you might think that the mind is self, right?
Yeah, I was going to say that.
That's true.
The knowing mind, the knower.
Yeah. Okay. As we were discussing this in another workshop earlier on, I think that was in Kota Kinabalu. There was one brother who came up and said, well, this last sentence, and he dwells independent and does not cling to anything in the world, need not necessarily be directly connected to the last option. You know what I mean? It could actually be a culmination of all the rest. After he has done everything already, finally he comes to he arrives at this attainment. Right? Yes, please come. There's a mic in front of you. Come forward, better. We can see you.
Bhante, you were saying that all these options are independent options, but now you're saying after he has done all tried out all this.
And that's what another one brother suggested.
Oh,
You should-
okay.
Maybe that's what it means, not necessarily just separate options. When there is an option, it means that you can do or you don't want to do, right? There's option, this or
Right,
this
or
or
this
this.
or
You
this.
can do, it's up to you. You want to do, also can. You don't want to do, also can. So what he's trying to say is that a person does everything,
Oh,
from
okay.
1 to 7, and then he arrives at this.
Okay,
He says
that I can
he
accept.
he gives that sort of interpretation.
So Bhante, that means the word all is a typo error lah.
Actually, there is another sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya which does not have the or. Right? I think it's in the Vibhanga Sutta, if I'm not mistaken, which we will talk about later. Right.
Or Bhante, another possibility is that he establishes this mindfulness repeatedly, although it's just on the body, but this sati grows and it becomes stronger, and eventually of course he wouldn't just be aware of just this, he'll notice other things as well, because as the sati becomes stronger and stronger, then he will note feelings and also mental states and other things. So in that world, it is just something that you start off with, a stepping stone, and to grow in the sati.
Okay. So which means that if we apply that sort of interpretation, this would work for all the exercises. All the exercises are just stepping stones, because all of them end with the same refrain, right? After you have established yourself in this stepping stone, then other things become clear, and you see the overall picture, and then you attain this state. Okay, that's Asma Kumara's interpretation. Okay, anyone else?
Maybe could be there is in previous life, maybe he is already so strong in the feeling, establishing a feeling and so on. Then in this life, he just need to establish the body. Then from there is actually combinations, and then we got the whole thing. And then the previous life is actually so good in practicing the 10 precepts or 5 precepts, and then this is reaching certain thing, and then at this time, and then he just practices body contemplation, and then he get enlightened from that.
Many possibilities.
Bhante, in the Kayagasati Sutta, I think the Buddha also explained that the practice of mindfulness of the body has a strong pull, and the 6 wild animals of the 6 senses though. And the Buddha praised a lot on the practice of this Kayagasati. So I think he also mentioned that it's possible to attain Nibbana just by practicing this.
Yeah, like I said earlier on, in the introduction to the Satipatthana Sutta, I talked about Ajahn Sujato's hypothesis, and I also talked about Professor Guan Zhefu's suggestion that initially the Buddha started off with Kaya Gata Sati or Kaya Sati, Nyensen, and that was his original guidelines for self-introspection, looking back at yourself. And Kaya there does not mean the physical body only. Kaya there refers to the person that involves the subject and the object, right? The perceiver and the perceived, the observer and the observed. And later on in his career, he fine-tuned that, expanded that into the 4 Satipatthanas. And before he died, he made the 4 Satipatthanas the most important teaching. That was his hypothesis. If you are interested, you can read up the book, like Mindfulness in Early Buddhism, by this professor, his PhD thesis. And he argues that Kayagata Sati there does not refer to these exercises on the body alone. It refers to something else. It's a general guideline for watching mind and body relating to one another, a subject-object experience.